Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out. We appreciate it.
Who are not only the filmmakers, but the actors, Marvin, Caleb, the producers, the script writers,
we like wearing
the
multiple
cinematographer.
Hats.
You're focusing on a 10-year-old girl, Annie. This was the car race from the beginning.
An encore presentation.
You're focusing on Annie, a 10-year-old girl who is not at all a little princess, but more like a little devil, a warrior. She's always fighting, and she likes destroying everything. And she's quite an unusual girl. And I would like to know, how you developed this character, because I think it's a very empathetic look on her. Mm-hmm. We like her.
Yeah, we wanted to have a character that was very complex and troubled, but to humanize her as much as possible, so that it was, so you didn't just, demonize her right from the start. And we wanted to have a character. We thought it was more interesting to have a little girl that was kind of this angry young girl as opposed to a little boy, because we feel like we'd seen that before. And in how we presented her, we really wanted to do it as much as possible from her perspective, as opposed to a lot of films we've seen about children that are kind of from an adult's perspective, whether it's literally in the movie from the adult's perspective or just kind of the feeling you get where it's very sentimental. And that was something we wanted to avoid and really focus on the here and now of that character's childhood, which, when you're that age, you don't look at everything as being sentimental. There's some things that are beautiful and some things that are really horrible, and everything is new and scary to you, and you're testing boundaries and trying to, feel out the world around you. And some kids do it in better ways than Annie does, obviously, but that was kind of the starting point for the character.
And it's not only this unsentimental approach to childhood, but at the same time, it's a portrait of adulthood. I mean, the world of adults that is surrounding her is, they are not able to answer her questions. They are, in a way, everyone is disabled in a certain way, or even handicapped or disturbed. Mm-hmm. It's quite a disturbing surrounding. Perhaps you could elaborate on that.
Well, we wanted, from her perspective, she's very alienated from those around her, and so we wanted there to be that disconnect between, the adults that she was faced with, whether, it was something that she imposed herself or something, or the limitations on their part. With the father that Nathan played, we didn't want him to be like, your typical, like, abusive father. We wanted him to just kind of be absent. Like, we felt that that Marvin does the best job he possibly can, but the best that he can is really, really poor, and kind of that be the extent to their relationship. That's why she always addresses him by his first name. They don't really have it's more almost like roommates rather than like a parental role.
And why all these other protagonists, characters, the handicapped girl or the guitar teacher and so on. It's an atmosphere of, it's a disturbing atmosphere. It's not only Marvin, it's all the rest. There's also something like decay.
Yeah, well, really, we grew up in that area of Texas, and so we have like a certain fondness for that. There's like, beauty in that decay. And so we wanted to try to capture that, and also it was something that we were, familiar with and comfortable with portraying. And it was for the supporting characters, it was a combination of knowing people like that or meeting these people just through different experiences. Like the guitar playing, the guy who was blind, worked on a documentary that he was in, and just was so talented and so charismatic and so interested in new experiences that the idea of him being in a film, he hadn't seen a film before, so the idea of him being in one was interesting to him, and so it worked out really well for that role, I thought.
One more question before handing over to the audience. yeah, then there is this black hole she's discovering in the woods. And this is something very interesting because, yeah, you have more or less a hyper-realistic approach in your film, but then there's this black hole that made me think from the very beginning at fairy tales. Perhaps you could comment on this mixture of hyperrealism and fairy tale motifs.
Well, yeah, that was I think when Nathan and I were talking about the tone we were going for, we really wanted to find a balance with a very naturalistic tone, just to be true to her character, and let her kind of breathe in the moment with what she's going through, and then add some elements of a fairy tale or fable to that, and part of that is I think when we were growing up, a lot of what interested us was in terms of things we were reading as children were like Grimm's fairy tales and Greek mythology and just fables in general, because they were often very dark, and yet children were allowed to read them even though they're hundreds of years old or whatever. And the other children's literature we were exposed to we felt was really watered down and sanitized for us, and so those were the kind of stories we were drawn to growing up, and so I think that's kind of how that element played into this. Also, just when we were just growing up and spending a lot of time in the woods or just exploring, and where everything is foreign and new, finding a hole in the ground was always this mysterious this mysterious void into the unknown. So.
And the hole is unsettling her very, very, very much in her being.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but are there any questions of the audience? Please give us a sign, and then the mic will come to you. It's very hard. It's hardly possible to. Yeah.
Okay. Hello. I was very surprised about the ending of the movie. In your opinion, does she win or does she lose? If she's a warrior, why this ending?
Well, it's all a matter of perspective. I think from her perspective, I think there's a sense of redemption and closure and escape to this other place. But you could look at it from an adult perspective as being much more tragic. So we just kind of wanted to leave it, open to interpretation beyond that. I don't know if that's very satisfying, but it just seemed like the best. When in trying to stay true to that character, it seemed like we didn't have alternate endings. It seemed like the as we were writing it, seemed like the natural progression.